I'm Christopher Brown. I run the client success team at MessageGears, and we're here today in BrightWave's offices. And today we're going to be doing a little bit of talking about different topics.
Excellent. Hey, I'm Laura Sullivan, Vice President and Creative Director here at BrightWave. And we're an email and ECRM agency really focused on great content, great design, also strategy and technology.
Great. Well, let's jump in. I think one of the big things that I'm hearing from both clients and prospects is a lot about personalization. So I think that's seems to be very relevant today, and I'd love to hear what you're seeing at BrightWave.
Sure, absolutely. I think it's a really interesting time to be making emails because the possibilities have expanded so much in the last 5 years, even in the last 3 years. What we can do is just amazing. So we've moved past the days of, hey, first name, personalization, and now we're doing things that are much more complex. So all the way from, geo-targeting in a hero with different imagery to a complete tile-based program that's really taking personalization to the next level. So one of those examples is, of course, Chick-fil-A, a program that we work on that we're incredibly proud of, that is highly, highly personalized. We just did some calculations this week, actually, about the last send in July, and there were over 2,000 versions of that email.
Wow.
So you can imagine it's getting highly, highly personal on an individual level. And we use MessageGears for Chick-fil-A. That's one way that we're able to be really personalized. For us, personalization all starts with getting the data and then being able to use it. I think, that's often the big challenge and step one
we
for
hear that
us.
all the time.
Yes, definitely. And there are ways to get around that too that we can talk about, that we've been pioneering some ways to gather preferences in the inbox itself. But for the Chick-fil-A program, we do some incredibly sophisticated things. So not just, a hero that changes with the time of day or changes with where you're opening it or what type of app user you are. But those points messages that motivate you to get your next treat with the Chick-fil-A One app.
To take that action.
Exactly. To some really cool things like life cycle banners that we add. So these are, based on an action that you take, we've given you some feedback in the inbox. So for example, someone places their first catering order, someone places their first mobile order, does their first scan, or maybe we haven't seen them in a while and they've gone silent on us. We're able to speak to them with this particular area of the email.
Nice.
And
love that.
Yeah, it's a really great way to give people immediate feedback and to show them that we're listening and we're paying attention and we're reacting to them on an individual level.
Terrific. What were some of the steps you guys had to take? I know in working with both, clients and prospects, they love to hear the sounds great. I would love to get to that place. Like, other than, just jumping in and partnering with BrightWave to get it done for them, what are some of the things they need to either think about, do themselves, the logic you guys took, some of the bumps on the heads you had?
Yes.
Because there's always some, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, this was definitely a journey of several years to get to, this level of personalization for many of our clients. Definitely some of the work steps that we've taken is shifting our design thinking. So,
interesting.
Yeah, so instead of thinking about, I'm sending 2,000 versions of an email, I need an army of people making 2,000 different emails. Yeah. We certainly can't do that.
No, let's not even think about that one.
Let's not go there. So we have to think about our designs as design systems. And something that we do is create an email playbook where we're really locking down the look and feel of the entire program so that any combination of content is going to look really great together.
Sure.
And that's, talking about bumps on the heads, that's definitely something that we've learned through experience.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It takes another bump on the head, actually, is just the idea that it takes a lot of assets and a lot of content.
Yeah, I've heard that's what intimidates a lot of people, is just simply not so many of the versions, but all the different pieces that have to go to it, because you do have to have a variation for all of it, right?
Totally.
That's the piece. And yeah, think ahead about that.
Totally. The key for us is really thinking about it as a system and building a content library.
Great.
So, just in that example of the life cycle tiles I was mentioning, first catering order, first mobile order, we're constantly building out that library of those life cycle tiles so that we're using them over and over again at just the right moment.
Okay.
And we're thinking about the design system in a modular format so that all the pieces can come together in a certain way.
Okay.
So I would say, you were asking about the work steps. I think step one is to think about the system in a more modular way. Step two is to sort of create a playbook or a place where you can lock down the look and feel so it all looks good together. And then for us, step three is really creating some complex content matrices with some business logic so we can pull in those pieces.
Right.
And then the last step is you just keep building out the content library and making sure that you have a really deep well to pull from. And then production-wise, at some point it gets easier.
Yeah, you have to go do work and it gets easy.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that's true of a lot of the sort of complex programs that we're working on. I would say those work steps are where we have to be to really be using data and personalizing on that level.
Got it. In terms of tools, walk us through some of the tools that you've either leveraged to get here or that you're currently using. I know people love to hear about those types of things. It doesn't mean that you necessarily recommend them. It just means that it worked in this particular case. But I think people find that of interest.
Oh, absolutely. I'm mainly speaking from a content and design perspective. A huge shift that we made at BrightWave for design was moving from Photoshop to Sketch.
Really?
Yes,
Okay.
and Sketch is hugely important for us to create these complex programs. It's more lightweight. There are symbol libraries where we can set up on a client basis a lot of these sort of different complex elements that we're bringing in, and so we can have a modular system that's all in one view in a Sketch file. So we use Sketch, and it has been awesome. And then we use InVision for our prototyping, mock-ups, and then also proofing, like a way to communicate with clients.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've ever seen InVision, but
I have not.
it's a really cool tool, basically a way for us to take all the tiles and modules when there's like a ton of personalization and see it all together in a board, and then we can have that back and forth with the client right there.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. What about in terms of testing? What was the path look like for testing, getting all this ready and piecing it together, right?
Yes, that is, excuse me, always a interesting topic of conversation. When you have thousands of versions of an email, how in the world do you test it? And we did, when I was mentioning that matrices that we make for each email. With that, we create something called the minimum viable testing options.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, what are really the 50 combinations of this email that people are going to see? And then we're able to pull those together and send our self-test emails,
Right.
And be really rigorous with our QA process.
Yeah, I can imagine that has to be.
Yeah, there's a really cool tool that I've just peeked at. I think it's in beta, but it's coming from Fresh Inbox, which they do amazing things with interactivity in email, kinetic design. So we're always following them, following their blog, which is a great source of information.
Right.
I love that the email community is very transparent, and everyone shares code, everyone shares hacks together.
It's nice that way.
Yeah, I love that, and they're definitely a great place for the community. They've created a tool that allows you to easily send yourself different versions of an email.
Okay.
That's just coming out now, so I keep an eye on that too.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Other clients that you've had a lot of personalization work with?
Sure. Yes. It's interesting. You were asking about tools too. I failed to mention. We use tools like movable ink a lot of times to do some really cool real-time personalization. And one of our clients, HD Supply, we've been toying around with doing some cool stuff with. And this is very much of the moment since there is a hurricane smashing into the coast right now. But HD Supply is a spinoff of Home Depot, B2B. They're supplying,
builders essentially.
builders
Yeah.
and other sectors with lots of different supplies. So you can imagine that when a disaster happens, it's really important for them to send out content in real time.
Right.
So we've been playing around with geo-targeting using Movable Ink with them.
Obvious, yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
it makes so much sense.
Great.
Other clients that we do use Movable Ink with, and it's very successful, Synovus, which is a large regional bank in the South. We've been working on their live map features. So
What does that do for them?
So you can imagine a lot of their messages are about using the ATM instead of going into the bank.
Sure.
You could do a lot with the ATM that people may not have even known about.
Okay.
So pulling in closest ATM locations when they open on their mobile device is an awesome way to contextualize the message and say, hey, and you can do it 3 blocks away right now.
Gotcha.
So we've been using that. It's been very successful.
Sure. And I'm sure I imagine the next dream then would be you've tried this step using the ATM. Here's 2 more or something along those lines, right?
Exactly.
Which you've accomplished with Chick-fil-A.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
beautiful. Great. Next thing I think we want to probably get into is new things, continuing that theme of tools and things. A lot going on with Google AMP, I hear these days, and I got a lot of clients getting nervous about it, so wanted to find out what BrightWave is doing and thinking about continuing with Google AMP since it's not so far away.
Oh, absolutely. Obviously we're super excited about the idea of interactivity in the inbox. And, we even in-house through our own kind of labs site and labs team have been developing lots of interactivity in the inbox, whether it be, hotspots or interactive carousels or lots of other things that make emails just more interesting and interactive. Yeah. Of course, they're not supported by every client.
Yeah, I was going to say, but you're always finding yourself limited, right? That's the problem with labs with email is you're always held back by something.
Right, and our philosophy with that is is really progressive enhancement, right? So you can say it 2 ways. You can say it's graceful degradation or progressive enhancement. Depends on your view on the world. We like to think about it in the positive as an enhancement. So you've got the base email. It's a great experience. Yeah. It looks good. But then for those who are using a client that supports it, here's this other awesome experience, this other layer of content, these additional images to take you deeper. So that's all to say, we've been thinking about interactivity in the inbox for a long time. Yeah, so clearly. The Google AMP announcement was really exciting. Yeah. So at their summit, they basically announced that accelerated mobile pages could be, in the future used in the inbox. And so we, like everybody else in the email world, scrambled to get development access, and we're like, "Well, this is amazing!" Yeah. And they gave access to a few sort of test companies in the beginning. You may have seen like the Pinterest example, which everyone just sort of swoons over, and it is amazing. For sure. Just the idea that Pinterest onboarding process where you're choosing your interests and you're building your first custom board can be brought into the inbox without leaving, and in real time they're building that board for you and sort of drawing you into Pinterest. So that's awesome. I think right now we're in a wait and see place with Google AMP though, because after that announcement, after that initial trial with a few companies, they haven't really moved the ball forward. Yeah. So they haven't been giving out development access. They haven't really been doing much more. In the meantime, at BrightWave, we've just been dreaming and developing some things that we think would work for our clients. Based on what we're seeing like in the little GitHub community surrounding Google AMP, etc. So for example, we have a client, Rent.com, and one of their big challenges as a business is suggesting the right next apartment. So they have a very complicated, sophisticated algorithm, bunch of geniuses figuring out if you live in this area and you clicked on these apartments, what are the other apartments we should serve up to you?
I'm sure it's quite personal, but yet there's an algorithm behind it that has to give me a suggestion.
Totally. And we've been thinking, the program that we run for them right now, we are bringing those suggestions in with a ton of dynamic content.
Yeah.
But we're thinking about how we can utilize Google AMP to take that one step further. So we've built out a little proof of concept for them in which right in the inbox, you can say, yes, I want more apartments like this. No, I don't want apartments like this. And you're essentially extending your search experience right in the email.
And so the email, feeding the algorithm without leaving the inbox.
Exactly. Yeah, we can feed it back into the algorithm, and your email is also re-rendering in real time. So
really?
You're seeing, that's the beauty of Google AMP.
Right.
You're actually changing your inbox experience in real time when you're sort of thumbs upping something or saying, yes, I want more amenities like this. I want more 2-bedroom apartments like this. So it's pretty cool. We've built out that proof of concept. It's fun to dream right now. Another proof of concept that we built out was for Chick-fil-A, actually. Again, kind of a business problem that would be really cool to solve with Google AMP. The catering experience, people often abandon it. They get started and then they're like, and they trail
Too complicated, I'll go in the store myself.
Totally.
All kinds of reasons, I'm sure.
All kinds of reasons. But how could we take someone who abandoned a catering browsing experience and pull that experience into the inbox and give them a personalized menu and get them to just add it directly to the cart. So kind of serving as this bridge for a web experience in the inbox. And that's kind of how we're looking at Google AMP. It's really bringing these applications into the inbox. And so a lot of that UI that we would find in an app, we're trying to steal little pieces from that and see how we would bring it into the inbox.
I love it.
Which is pretty awesome. It's pretty mind-blowing.
Just get here.
Yes. If you play with email all day, it is really exciting, but now we're just really tired of waiting.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. Well, I mean, Google seems like the obvious one to bring it to us, so hopefully it's not just a lot of talk. Hopefully bring it quickly.
And I mean, I will be completely honest that there are a fair share of haters out there who say, well, there are some problems with Google AMP. It's an experience that you have to create for each email that's just for Gmail. So your production time is going to be super long. It's
just for a limited set. But I mean, email's been that way for a while, right? There's lots of won't work in Outlook. I mean, how many times have we heard that one? So many things don't work in Outlook.
Totally.
So we've been facing this for years. I don't think it's, to your point, there's haters out there for sure. But this is where the business we're in, I guess.
Yes.
It's got different segments and different rules and restrictions. So I think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else?
About Google AMP in particular? Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because we have yet to see if ESPs are going to support Google AMP at all.
Okay.
And I know we
are clearly intending to. So
yes, I know we even talked to you guys about like, hey, could we do this?
Absolutely.
So I think that maybe you might be unique in that regard at MessageGears, but it's still unclear if there's going to be support in other ESPs. So
maybe because we love the data so much, who knows?
Who knows?
Fair enough. Okay. Next one, since we're talking about, why don't we get into data and content? I know it's a big driver of how things go, and I'm sure it's one of those pieces that makes things work so much better if only you can get it right. So let's hear a little bit about what BrightWave's been doing with clients in that regard.
Sure. Something really cool that we have been doing for several years now as kind of a step one with data is the idea of progressive profiling in the inbox. In an ideal world, we're at that place that I just described with rent.com, where there's an algorithm that's powering emails and we're getting all these data points. That's awesome. That's where we want to go. But often we hear from clients that, well, we don't have that yet, or we can't access this. So one thing we've been developing is the idea of progressive profiling. So using an interactive experience in the inbox to actually ask someone, hey, what are you interested in?
Right.
And we usually do it in a visual way. So we ask a question and then they could click on several answers so we can collect data in the inbox. And we use tracking pixels. We've been sort of developing that tech to track people and understand which things they're interested in. We give user feedback with the kinetic
Now, what does
design.
the track do in that case? It wouldn't be so much where they're clicking, it'd be something else, right?
Well, if we're doing it in an image-based or an icon-based format, which we generally do, then we're tracking where they're clicking and we're mapping that back to an individual interest.
Okay, so it is a click then.
Yep.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the idea. So that's kind of a first step when you're like, I don't have any data, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you should just ask. And if you can't even do that, one thing we suggest is just listening, because usually your email subscribers are telling you what they're interested in all the time.
All the time, for sure.
Based on what they're clicking on. So how can you mine your own data to start off with?
But that also assumes that where they're clicking, that A, you're getting that feedback, which isn't, I'll say, rocket science to get that feedback where the clicks are happening. But I think a few companies lose it a little bit of, okay, but where do I store all that? And how do I grab all that data when I need to build out my next message and use that for targeting? Have you found a lot of clients getting stuck in that regard, or they're getting past that now? Where do you feel like the general sense of your clients is at?
Sure, yeah. We definitely have been developing the tracking pixel and using tools like ClickMeter to help us do it as well, so that we can actually get the data back into the ESP in a usable format. So that's one of the main things that we need to do. And luckily we have an awesome tech team here who's able to sort of hack any ESP and make that work. But of course that's the hard part, right? And it's sort of a first step toward
number of hoops
segmentation.
To go through.
Sure.
But you mentioned that Rent has their own algorithms, so they're probably less interested in the data going to the ESP and getting it back into their own algorithm, so it can learn more about that particular recipient consumer, so they can drive their algorithm even more for better suggestions, right?
Sure, and in that case, it's both, right? It's how can we use the data, but also how can we feed it back into the organization for a larger understanding.
Yeah. Other things you've learned with other clients in terms of data, things you're bumping your head on, you're seeing clients stumble on a little bit?
That's a good question. Definitely, going back to what we were talking about earlier with design systems, I think we're solving a lot of our production problems with data using those systems. I think that's a big issue. It's like, great, we have all this data. Well, how are we going to utilize it all to actually speak to people?
The segmenting and the targeting and all that.
Sure. It's complex. It's complicated. So, for us, creating a more systematic approach has really helped.
Yeah, what we found is the big piece is the number of places that the data is stored, and it starts to get out of sync. It starts to create problems. So our mantra is, keep the data in your own data system. Let you be the system of record. But I know not for all clients, it's not so easily done on day one. So it's a process to get in. Well, great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, let's talk a little bit into interactive design. I think we've hit on it somewhere, a little bit. But what are some new things that you're seeing, or areas where you're seeing, let's say, clients embrace more, even if it's not a new thing? What's starting to really get traction?
Sure, absolutely. I think it's interesting. The interactive elements like carousels have been around for a while, but now we're figuring out how do we take that to the next level. And so we've created more of like a menu approach to interactive design, so that when we come up with a business challenge, we can pull out of our toolkit the exact little element that we need.
Prioritizing it almost,
Exactly. So, for example, things like accordion menus. When we know we need to put some more clunky Q&A type, frequently asked question type content in an email, how can we do that in a way that's a self-guided experience, so that if someone is interested in security, they can go deeper on that topic, or they can just browse over it, and it's not going to sort of affect the overall layout or design of the email. So things like that have been very important for us. And then also just borrowing some really slight UI tools with interactive design. So things like a button changing color when you mouse over it, or a card sort of jumping when you mouse over that to draw attention to it, or even something that we call micro animation. So if we have an icon, when you mouse over it, a slight animation will happen. So just those little pieces of user feedback that we've never had possible in the inbox that are becoming more and more supported. They really enhance the experience. So it doesn't have to be something loud and flashy. Now we're seeing it sort of integrated into the fabric of email design, and I think that's really exciting because it's a better experience.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned carousels, though. It's funny. Carousels, have been around a while, and yet don't see them that often. Are there some other things that you're seeing that are, I'll say, starting to fade away?
That's interesting.
Or just never really caught as much as you. It seemed like carousels would be such a big thing, and kind of hit. Saw people play with it, but didn't really see them do a lot.
Yeah, I mean, for us, sometimes the carousels are a little too heavy for the inbox if you have a lot of rich imagery. And the best carousel designs that we've hit on are the ones that have thumbnails at the bottom. So if it's just a carousel, but there's no reason to click that arrow. Sometimes
they don't even know what they're getting into.
Right. No. People aren't really programmed to do that in the inbox. So you have to sort of give them a sly
hey, this
cue,
works.
like, hey, by the way, you can click on this, even though it's an email. So we find that sort of thumbnail across the bottom or thumbnail on the left-hand side style of carousel does work really well. And then you just have to keep it.
But again, there's the weight considerations and other things.
Totally. So, and aside from that, I think, obviously GIFs were like a huge thing in email. And we're seeing those fall by the wayside. I think they have to be really purposeful, and less is more. We're doing things like what we would call a cinematograph. So, for example, Charbroil Grills, one of our clients, they might have a gorgeous picture of an outdoor party. Instead of a flashy animation, we might just have the fire on the grill animating. So it like catches your eye.
Or the lights, the
twinkling
lights. Twinkling lights.
Exactly.
I've seen that a few times.
So I think it's a shift.
Sure.
It's a shift in how we think about design. It doesn't have to be so flashy. It should be something like purposeful, and it just catches your eye.
What about video? Videos seem to be catching for a while, and can't say that I've seen it too much anymore.
It's interesting. So it's been over a year, I think, since HTML5 video got a little bit of wider support, got support in Gmail. And we have experimented with it a little bit, but again, it's one of those progressive enhancements that's just not going to be supported everywhere. So
even with movable ink, though, I want to say, like, they've had it, they've been around for a while. It just doesn't seem to. Don't see tons of it in email anymore. It seems one of those things that kind of came and just didn't capture the attention.
I mean, one of the
went
challenges.
so much because it's still there, right?
It's
but
just
there.
Where
to go? Where to go?
Well, one of the challenges we found with putting video in email is, I always say, like, email is the invitation and the party's on the other side. So don't, it should literally give you a reason to click. And if you put a video in the inbox, a lot of times you're giving them all the information right there. So there's no incentive.
And they call it done.
So you see the engagement rates increase, you see the time spent on the email increase, but no one clicks through.
That's true. Well, great. Well, let's talk a little bit about real-time content. We're kind of starting in on a little bit with the movable ink and things. But what else are you seeing? Things are unique things. I know the one that always captured my attention was the hotel do not disturb tag, but it had my name on it. Writing my name in the beach made me definitely want to book a ticket and head to the beach quickly.
Totally.
Some other type things that you're either seeing or ways clients are using in interesting ways.
Yeah, totally. It's really interesting. There's like the 1.0 version of that. And then I think now we're seeing how that's evolving into 2.0, 3.0. So for example, for Synovus, the regional bank I was mentioning earlier, they have a credit card program. Of course, there are points associated with that credit card. There was an email that was just, whatever, the most boring points email ever. You have this many points. And we were able to really completely reimagine that using real-time content. So yes, it has the credit card that's personalized like your card, and
Right.
yes, it has your name on it, which is really cool. But now we're working on how do you do some data visualization within the email to talk about your points in real time. So what is your category, and we could show iconography to show your category, some imagery that matches that category, dynamic imagery, some other sort of motivational, you have this many points until you get this reward message. So it's a whole email that's really super customized, but it's really visual.
Okay.
So things like that are exciting.
So let's run with that a little bit. So why is that so, I'll say, different than what Chick-fil-A is doing? Seems like that's exactly what Chick-fil-A is doing, and yet it felt like Chick-fil-A is doing it on their own, and felt like Synovus needed movable link to get that done.
Gotcha. Yeah, I see what you're asking. So in the Chick-fil-A version, this is a whole program that includes a variety of data points, like location, your preferences in the app, what was your last order.
Exactly.
So there's, in each email, there are like 10 different points of personalization. For the Synovus email, it's all direct data from your card.
Okay.
So it's a little different.
Yeah. A little more specialized then?
Yeah, it is.
More about an email than a program or a whole systematic approach, if you will?
Exactly. Okay. It's one email where you're sort of visualizing points or rewards.
Got it.
So
sounds good.
Yeah, and you're also doing cool things still, like putting their name on the card
Yeah.
with a particular font.
Not so easy.
Which that's
a credit card embossed font, right?
Yes, exactly.
Not very common, sure.
Exactly. Still use movable link for that stuff. Still love it.
Yeah, good reasons. Very helpful. I think informative and interesting, and I loved it. I hope to do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, I hope so. Love to talk to you again.